It is a real pleasure to be here with you today, in front of the Canadian Parliament, to participate in this discussion, voice my opinion, and to exchange views on one of the major global issues of our time. Keyword, global issue. And I say this because this refugee crisis is not only a Canadian one, it is a global one. Justin Trudeau, thank you for this opportunity. On the side of a Turkish beach, 23 people, 2 boats, including 1 family, set on a 13-mile journey to reach the Greek island of Kos. Minutes later, they were capsized, killing not only 3-year-old Syrian boy, Alan, but his 5-year-old brother and his mother. They all died in their father's arms, the only one to survive. Canada is an accepting country who opened their door to the innocent, we all say. However, according to the report in the Globe and Daily Mail, the family of the innocent little Syrian boy applied for legal immigration to Canada, only to be denied later. They were left with one option: to get on the boat that caused the death of 22 people. We need to open our eyes to the places that have been bombed into rubble or fallen under the control of psychopathic, sadistic, murdering gangs. What distinguishes these refugees from the Jews, from the slaves, or from any other refugee? What would you do if you only had 10 minutes to get out of your house, leave it all behind you for most possibly forever? What would you take with you? How would you feel? This is just the beginning of their journey, as doors continues to be closed, leaving them with nowhere to go. But our human nature to be good is often balanced by mankind's fear. The fear of accepting a refugee because maybe, just maybe, one of them might be a terrorist. Let's look at the facts. Since 2011, 5.1 million Syrians have fled the country as refugees, and 6.3 million Syrians are displaced within the country. Half of those affected are children, making Syrians the world's largest refugee population under the United Nations mandate. It's the worst exodus since the Rwandan genocide 20 years ago. On average, by the end of this day, 32,000 people will be forcibly displaced from their home. 32,000 people. 32,000 innocent humans with the same hopes and dreams as everyone. George Clooney once said, "We call them refugees, but they're simply people, just like you and me. Except their home is no longer a sanctuary, it is a war zone." Now let's further analyze the terrible ISIS attacks around the world that are paralyzing countries to open their doors to Syrian refugees. Take the 2014 bombing in Paris as an example. Out of all the ISIS terrorists, they were all European-born nationals, meaning none of them were Syrian refugees. Whether it was Canada or 9/11, Bernardino, Boston Marathon, and Orlando nightclub attack, which resulted in over 3,200 people killed and many more injured, none of those responsible were Syrian refugees, or any of the so-called 7 banned countries. Despite all the controversial accounts, when push comes to shove, all evidence pointed towards the attackers of the recent terrorist attacks to have been European with sympathies to the ISIS regime. So why fear the refugees? How would you feel if it was you, constantly feeling on edge, with nerves, terror, and fear for the future, watching the devastation spread all around you? Your enemy is not the refugee. Your enemy is the person who made him a refugee. The people who are fleeing Syria are the most harmed by terrorists, the most vulnerable as a consequence of civil war. They are men, they are women, they are parents, they are orphans, they are children, they can change our future. Who here is the owner of an Apple product? We all know Steve Jobs, the father associated to Apple, yet little do we know he is the biological son of a Syrian refugee, Abdul Fattah Jindali, who once fled political unrest in his native country. Where would Apple be today if Syrians were not accepted 50 years ago? It's astounding to really think that the most precious thing in the world, a small child, was washed up on the seashore of a Turkish beach, thrown away like an object of no value. But a child with the parent of the same nationality, given the chance, had created the largest company in the entire world. Mila Kunis, Albert Einstein, Rita Ora, Freddie Mercury, Gloria Estefan, Henry Kissinger, Marlene Dietrich, Madeleine Albright, and many more were all refugees who fled from their country. But here's the difference. These individuals had been given the chance to make a better life for themselves. Why can't we do the same with our current crisis? It's sad to see that the countries that have hosted the largest population of refugees, Lebanon, Turkey, and Jordan, are themselves struggling economically. As many of these countries are now being forced to close their doors, it has now fallen upon us as a nation to do our fair share and welcome these refugees. We shall never see Syrian families killed during their displacement, lost to a world that they never had the chance to get to change. We need to open our eyes to the vision of suffering. We need to open our hearts to the victims of violence. We need to open our minds to the injustice presently happening. More importantly, we need to open our doors to the innocent. If we are to survive as a nation, we can't simply look away. Thank you.